original release of the Lowballer is rated for 750 watts RMS, and that's what we're going to test that at rated power, see if it fails under the same conditions. We're going to test the Punisher at 1400 and 2800 for a 1-minute tone, because they said you could do it. It'll do that, and it'll do all day. So we're going to check that. We're going to check actual SPL in an SPL box that, again, may not be perfectly optimal for either sub, but it's the same box using the same two subs, and we're going to see how they actually compare in the real world. We'll also put it in a musical box that is actually too big for the Lowballer, but the correct size for the Punisher. So the Punisher has an advantage by being in the correct box, while too big for the Lowballer, just a little bit. And we are going to compare those results. So we can see in the real world, even though the Punisher has much higher power handling spec, physically looks bigger, has a 3-inch coil instead of a 2.5-inch coil. Do they perform similar? Does one perform better than the other? Even though they are the same price, and you apparently can't go off the specs anyway.
And here we have the final Showdown. This is the very original Lowballer 12 prototype. So on the production ones, the surround was darker, like this color, and we had our magnet boot that had the EMF logo on it, but otherwise it's the same. This one has been beaten on for years. You've seen it in other videos, taking well overrated power, and here it is back again for this comparison. And then we have the brand new out of the box. The only playtime it's got is on the test bench for getting parameters off of it, where it's had some break-in time there, but has never been mounted. Brand new sub, and we're going to compare the two in real world. We're going to do direct swaps on these two subs and see what performs how in a musical box that this sub is right in the middle of the specs of what their range is, and it's actually too large for this sub. So this sub is at a disadvantage, but we're going to see how they compare. Now I'll remind you that this is a 2.5-inch coil sub. This is a 3-inch coil sub. This one has 3 power ratings. CEA, that basically means when you put it on their amps that don't make rated power, you won't blow it up, of 1400. Then an actual RMS, not the CEA RMS, of 2800. And then a peak of 5600, which we will completely ignore because it doesn't matter. This one, on the other hand, has an RMS of 750 watts. Now the revision 1 that's replacing this here soon is rated for 900 watts, and there's a couple minor changes to it. That's why it's a revision 1. It looks essentially like this. Very, very similar, but a 900 watt rating. But this one is 750, so that's what we're going to go off of. And you can tell motor size. That one's a little bit bigger. So let's address a few things right out of the gate that people ask and sometimes get wrong when they're comparing subs. Does a bigger motor mean it handles more power? No, it doesn't. There's cooling in the motor that makes a difference, the coil used. There's a lot of other things that go into power handling. The physical size of the motor does not dictate power handling. The physical motor size also is not a completely good indication of how much motor force it has. If it has a larger motor, that doesn't mean it's more motor force. There are many other factors. Mounting depth or motor depth does not mean that one sub plays lower better than another. There are many other factors that have to do with the suspension, the coil, the actual X-Max. Now, if it's this short and it has a coil that's however long and they claim whatever X-Max, you obviously need a motor that can accommodate that travel. In this case, like I said, they say 28 millimeters, and I haven't checked to see if the motor would actually be capable of that. But I suspect if you go off of mounting depth alone, the Lowballer is actually a taller motor. We can accommodate a longer coil in the Lowballer than we can on the Rockville. So from that aspect, that kind of weird. This is a bigger, more powerful sub, but this has more mounting depth. If you wanted to look at that as a factor, which again, does not affect if it's going to play well, low, or not. So that's what we're working with here. And you can see spiders, use the inner landing, using outer landing, they're the same size. Now, another thing that can affect that, there's the diameter of the spiders, which these do match, but you could also have a different roll size on the spider, which would give you a little bit more X-Max, but we already demonstrated this can't do it, so that's a moot point. But you can't go 100% off of spider diameter, which again, also does not mean that it plays lower better or anything like that. So onto the test itself, I'm gonna put these in. I'm gonna put them in a musical box first. And like the description said, you can play 1 minute tones. So we're gonna do it at rated power. This one at 750, and this one starting at the 1400. And this is the box. We've got our brand new EMF Audio 7500 AF, so we can produce all the power that we could possibly want at any impedance. I've got the Lowballer loaded up in this box. This box is just over 2 cubic feet, which again is right in range with where the Punisher wants to be. And this is slightly too large for the Lowballer. We don't recommend over 2 cubic feet for the Lowballer. Now, normally I would say let's have the sub inverted, and then we can also check the temperature, because in the last time with the K9, they advertised 280 degrees Celsius that it would take, and it didn't. It failed at like 140 or something like that. So we can't check it with the sub in the box, but the reason the sub is in the box is because somebody will complain that it wasn't cooling properly because it wasn't mounted in the box. So we're going to mount it how it was intended on both cases, and that will tell the story right there. So because this is 750, that's going to be our benchmark. This box is not meant for this car, as you can tell. It doesn't fit very well on this car. I had to kind of set the amp sideways. It's very badly positioned. It's not going to be good for SPL. It's not going to give a great SPL number. And I'm kind of glad, because I'm actually testing this in my home shop, so I don't want it insanely loud, as I do have neighbors and that kind of thing. But we're not looking for a maximum SPL number. We're looking for a comparative SPL number. So this is not going to meter very well in this box, in this position. And I'm going to leave it all sealed up. And this car sucks down in the 30s with everything sealed up. So I'm going to play probably 32 Hertz, I think, because this box, I believe, is tuned to 32 Hertz. So we're going to play at tuning. You like the lows, you want the lows. That's what this is about. We're going to play this at 750. We're going to play it for 1 full minute. And I know it's going to survive because I've done it on higher power. So what we're going to do is, after we do the 750 watts on the Lowballer, we're going to take the Punisher. We're going to also put it on 750 watts. Now, I know that's way less than rated power. That's going to give us a comparative SPL. Now, we're not going to look at overall frequency response. That would be a completely separate video in performance and that kind of thing. But just for an output standpoint, because that's something that you might just go, well, this one looks like it's louder than this one. We're only going to compare SPL at the same power level, and then we will move on to the rated power levels and see if it survives. If it does survive those power levels, congratulations, it actually takes rated power, but that will also advance to the SPL box. And in the SPL box that is designed for this car, not for either of these subs, we'll see exactly what kind of output we can get out of it and how much power can we put on it on a burp, maybe. We'll see how it goes. Now, this is running in real time, and the reason I'm doing that is as the sub gets warm, impedance is going to go up. So you might see this number may not necessarily just hold 750. I may have to adjust the volume a little bit. So I'm going to try my best to maintain 750 or right around that neighborhood. This is going to show the frequency that is being done at. This will just confirm the impedance that's doing it. That won't really matter. That's just the impedance change. This is a dual 2. The other one's a dual 2 as well. But that will kind of give an indication of efficiency. The higher the impedance here, the greater the efficiency in this box, real world. So that may be something to look at, but power, we're gonna make sure that it runs for 60 seconds as they claim that they can on a tone. So I'll just show that this can also do it. So prepare for 60 seconds of monitoring SPL. Now this track, I probably should have made a different one. It runs for 15 seconds, it'll start over, so you'll see a slight gap while it's running. That's not turning it off, that's the break in the track. Okay, so what did we see there? Well, the average SPL pretty much stayed the same. So that was 1 full minute, took a tone, 32 hertz, 750 watts, no problem. So will the Lowballer do what they claim? Yes, it will. I already knew it would. But we've got the Punisher in here now, and I'm gonna point something out when I was doing this swap. I had to take the box back out to make the hole bigger to fit this sub. Now, the outside diameter, you can tell from the last one, it comes out further. So the outside diameter is definitely bigger. But the cutout, I thought would fit because I've had Lowballers in here before, which is the 12-spoke basket. I've had Bandhammer V1s in here. It's a TI basket, which are a little bit larger than Mini. I've had an Ermagerd V1 12 in here that uses a larger basket that fit in here fine. And I think I've had a couple other different ones, but never one with this basket. All the other ones fit fine. So I never thought twice about this one fitting, but it in fact did not fit. So that being said, if you're doing a direct swap from another sub that uses a different basket, there's a strong possibility that this won't fit and you'll have to make the hole larger. Now, if you have it flushed, like I said, this is larger, so it may not fit in your cutout. So if you spend all this money having a nice custom box made and you go to swap this, it might not fit, which means a different box or a different sub. Maybe that won't bother you at all. Just a heads up of what I found. A reminder for those who like to skip around videos looking for boobs or things exploding, this enclosure is not great in this car for any purpose. This video is not showing the maximum capability of either sub, of what they're capable of in a musical application. This is only showing, will it take the power that is claimed. That being said, now we're going to do our real-time 60 seconds, 750 watts. We're only going to do for 15 seconds so nobody can complain that the sub was already hot and that's why it failed, if it failed. So we're only going to do 15 seconds, just to kind of look at the average, see what it does SPL wise to have a comparison on power. Okay, so power for power, there is an inaudible difference between the two subs. 750 watts, yeah, it's in line in this enclosure, which again is appropriate for the Punisher, too big for the Lowballer. That one would be a similar comparison. So for all intents and purposes, when we add power, it should be louder. Now also consider, this is metering purposes. This is not overall frequency response. This is not overall sound quality. None of those things. This is just this box and this car checking the power claims. So we're gonna go to 1400 watts for 60 seconds. Again, there's gonna be those short breaks at the track change. We're gonna do that for 60 seconds. And does it survive 1400? We'll find out. Okay, so the car is sealed up and I can smell it. Oh, we got smoke. You might be able to see it. So we have, yeah, there you go. We have smoke on 1 minute of 1400 watts. It's not gonna take 2800. It is definitely not gonna take a minute of it. But, I mean, I guess it took it for the CEA rating kind of for a minute. Let's see. Yeah, it's pretty hot. It was still playing. You saw the SPL drop off pretty hard, pretty fast on that one. So I'm gonna let this cool off down to like a room temperature, and I kind of want to do 2800s to see how long it lasts. So we're gonna do that. I'll be back in a little bit. All right, so here's the deal. I know this thing is not gonna take 2800 on a tone for a full minute, like they said, because it was smoking at 1400, and you saw how fast the SPL was dropping right out of the gate. So I'm going to crack the window a little bit so I can hear it. If I start hearing the coil doing the crinkly, you ever blown a sub and heard it? If it starts making that sound, I'm shutting it off. I'm not going to run the full time. I'm considering that blown. I do not want to potentially damage the amplifier. There is a protection circuit in it, so it should shut off if it dead shorts, particularly because we're on the bottom end of that output. 7500, you know, we're making a fraction of what it can actually make. It's a very undignified way to blow that amp in this application, if that were to happen, which I'm going to make sure that it does not. So SPL is going to get a little bit higher, both on camera and on meter, power for power, just from having the window down a little bit. But I want to make sure that I can hear it and shut it off immediately if I have to. Now, I have had to start the car because I've got around 200 amps of draw and my electrical cannot support that without the car running. So we're also going to have the car running. Let's get her up as close as we can to 2400 watts and see how long it'll maintain it. it just went. It shut off hard, so it is roasty toasty. And the amp has gone in protect. So yeah, that's pretty smoky. It was very, very abrupt. There was no sign. It just went play, 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 off. No indication that was coming at all. I guess I should probably take this thing out of the box, take a look at it, see what failed, how it failed, and then go over that. But we did learn it will not take rated power. So can you go off of that spec? No. If we continued at 1400, it would have failed past a minute. But the website specifically said it'll take it all day. It can do a tone for a minute, and it didn't at the rated power. So let's pop it out of the box, see what it looks like. Well, in trying to get a better look of the coil, you can tell it's a little charred, but it's pretty locked up. You can see right there, it is unwound. So it is definitely a goner. Just like the K9s, it just slid off the former, locked up, and it was done. That's why there was no warning it at all. So there you go, an extremely long video. So long, I started growing facial hair. So what we take from all of this is, what specs should you be looking at on a sub when you go to buy one? The answer is kind of none of them. You saw the specs that were pulled off of the Rockville didn't even go to that sub by their own specs, just by looking at the coil impedance. Could not have gone to that sub. Even if that wasn't the case, the specs were quite a bit different than what I pulled from them, which again, when I advertise any of the specs for like the Lowballer, for instance, that's me pulling the specs. That's information directly from me. There's nobody else in the middle. There's no interpretation. There's no language barrier. The way that I put a power rating on a sub is like you saw happen in the test. I put 750 watts on it, on a tone, and it was fine. Yeah, it got warm, but it didn't fail. SPL didn't fall way off. I know it's going to take 750 watts. The revision 1 that you can order now that is very similar to that is rated for 900. Same kind of thing. I know it's going to take 900 watts. So when I hand it to you, you won't be disappointed. If you put a 900 or 1000 watt amp on it, it's going to be fine. So power spec wise, yeah, we look at them. We look at the Punisher. It said 1400 CEA, which longer than a minute, I don't think it would take. It was already smoking. I started smelling it probably about 30 to 45 seconds through. Somewhere in there, I started to smell it outside the car. And then I open it up and it's smoking. I let it cool off. I put it on RMS power, which is supposed to be the power it can take. They say 1 minute on a tone, and it didn't take it. It failed just seconds into it, and it was cold to start with. So not even a prayer on the 2800 watts that they claim. And we weren't even maxing that out. You know, we were hanging on the lower side of that, and it was still failed. So when you're looking at specs, you can't go off the fail small parameters that they provide. You can't go off the power handling that they provide. You can't go off the physical size of the sub. What do you go off of? And that's where knowing the company comes in. Look at the company itself. What other things are they making? What results are other people having? Other customers? Ask around from a company standpoint. Have you had good experiences? Now, I know if you look at reviews online, you're going to look at cheap stuff, and the cheap stuff always has phenomenal reviews. And the reason for that is they don't know better. The expectation is here. So when you come in here, it's fine. Or it's so cheap you can come in here and they go, oh, it's just because it's cheap. But if your expectation is here because I've used better equipment, here's not acceptable anymore. Here's where you get a bad review, because here is good equipment. So look at what the company is doing. look at how people are actually using them, and that goes for every brand. And it's not to say that there aren't cheap things that might be acceptable, but in this case, it's just a flat out lie. The power handling is nowhere near what it can take. In all reality, it performs similar to the Lowballer, the original one, on the same power in that enclosure for that one SPL reading. So it might be reasonable to say, yeah, that sub could potentially, from an output standpoint, be equivalent to a Lowballer. And from a power handling standpoint, it's probably close to a Lowballer. In that 900 watt range, it might be okay. That's where we're rating the Lowballer Revision 1 on emfcaraudio.com, census plug. And the other one, the Punisher, probably 900 might be okay with it. It seemed to take 750 okay for the most part. So 900, probably an accurate rating. Now the K9 was a little bit less than that. So they rate it for a little bit more, and it takes a little bit more. Don't know if this is supposed to be the replacement to the K9, but nowhere near rated. Even the CEA 1400, not gonna do it. And the last side of that argument is sound quality. SPL in one box in one car that is not even a good match is not necessarily a good comparison of what that sub is capable of. It does not tell you longevity. It does not tell you build quality. It does not tell you sound quality, and it does not tell you frequency bandwidth. So here's my question to you, and I need you to comment below. This sub is going to get sent back. They have a 90-day, they pay shipping, everything, whatever warranty, that I am going to send it back. Should I get another one, do a part 2 that is comparing total bandwidth? Sound quality is going to be hard to judge, but I can tell you bandwidth, how well does it play low, how flat is the response over the range that you'd be playing. Get the actual SPL, put as much power as we can on it, see about the most SPL, does it hold up to it? Should I do that in a part 2, getting another sub? Comment below if you think I should. If we get a lot of interest in that, I will get another one, and I will do that. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you like what you see. Make sure you're subscribed so you can get notifications every time we do an upload when you hit that bell as well. Make sure you're shopping emfcaraudio.com, where you can buy the new Lowballer, the Bandhammer V2, some of our new amps, swag 6.5s, all that good stuff. You can also support us on Patreon in the links below. Check out the vehicle health monitor for the beginning of the video. The link is in the description below to get one of those free. I'll see you again in another Tech Stuff Tuesday.